Welcome to the show. I'm James.
I'm David.
I'm Riley.
I'm Sarah.
Okay, Sarah. And today we're discussing the Babadook.
Dook.
Happy Halloween. We'll laugh, we'll argue. We might get a little too into it. But at the end of the day, they're just movies.
Spoiler alert.
That's your spoiler alert? You are officially the spoiler alert guy.
You take a little bit of the pressure off.
You gotta make it. You gotta make it understandable, though.
Spoiler alert.
Oh,
That's just Ned from South Park.
I'm
though.
scared now.
No, Ned's like, spoiler alert. I used to be better at that. Yeah, guys, that's what's up. And next week, we're going to do the new Edgar Wright movie, Last Night in Soho.
Woo!
Is it final night in Soho, or is it yesterday's night in Soho?
Is
There are
Probably both.
a few more nights before the end of the. So
I call that a double entendre.
okay.
Whatever. And today, we're doing the Babadook all day, because it's Halloween, guys. Sarah's here. It's horror.
Yeah.
David,
Scary movie.
what do you give this movie out of 10?
Is Halloween. My slogan's not great, but I'm going for it. Just like this movie's not great.
Whoa!
Infusing standard horror tropes with some new ideas only go so far when your execution's just fucking shit. Fortunately, Babadook, outside of its logline, is really fucking bad. 4 out of 10.
Holy
David.
shit, David!
This movie
This
is
is
really
good.
fucking bad.
Great.
Man, from the first frame of this movie, and I thought, I was like, maybe I'm just in a bad mood because I'm forced to watch it tonight. So when I finished this movie, I put another movie on just to check. I loved that movie. So this movie sucks.
What was the other movie? What was the other movie?
Coda. It was awesome.
Oh,
a great movie. You
yeah, I
should
watched
watch
that
it.
one. I did
Yeah,
watch that
it's
one.
really
Wait, what do you?
nice.
Oh, like you would have hated the other movie too if you were in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Oh, was it a scary movie?
No.
No, Coda,
It's
no. It's like a family drama.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I didn't really want to watch it. It was the person I wanted to watch it
But it wasn't a horror movie. I think the real test would be if you put on another horror movie.
Let me tell you
I'm not
this,
gonna watch-
Riley. Coda's not great. It's like pretty good. It's in the 6 to 7
Wow.
range. And
Yeah.
David loved it, so he hated this movie.
This
Damn,
will be
dude.
I hated this
interesting.
movie.
Damn.
Oh man.
Okay, is it my turn?
Sure.
I'll allow it.
More like Momster movie.
I don't get
I wanted to write a longer slogan about how it was scary and well acted and had a lot of depth that I really liked and appreciated. But I didn't have time, and my brain isn't working because I haven't had a coffee yet.
Oh,
So
I haven't had a coffee. I'm not
Wow.
a human yet.
Wow. Damn,
Come on. Be a
Judged.
professional, Riley.
I have a coffee.
Sarah, Riley,
That's
cut
how
off.
I'm professional.
Sarah, take it from
my
here.
rating.
Yeah, well, give me a
Oh,
rating.
okay, sure.
My rating is 8 out of 10. I really liked it.
This is gonna be a weird variety.
I really
Very
liked it. I thought there was a
contentious.
lot of stuff to dig into in it, obviously, and it really I've related to it a lot more because I am a parent of a child currently going through sleep regression. So I like every time she was like struggling with sleep, I'm like, I feel you, girl.
Preach. A lot hinges on this one. Sarah, let's
You
hear what you
guys,
think.
the Babadook proves that horror can consist of matter far scarier than demonic possession, ghosts, and murderers. And that is the harsh reality as to how grueling and emotionally complex grief can be. Oh, and of course, a monster in a top hat. 9 out of 10.
What? 9?
Guys, I love this movie.
Oh my gosh.
But I do want to put a disclaimer out there. The first time I watched it, I felt very similarly as to how you feel now. First time I was like, oh, okay, that was terrible. Second time, I almost cried at the end. I felt very touched.
Wow.
So,
I think the end is really strong. Like that's by far my favorite part of the movie. And like my 4 is feeling 4. It's not like an objective 4. It's like I would have if the 5 is the line of like I would like to have this on and below I don't want this on. I was definitely below the line of I don't want this on. But I can recognize that there is good stuff thematically in this movie.
Before James does his, I just want to say that my rating is almost like too much on the objective side because it didn't make me feel good. I did not feel good watching this movie.
Yeah, this is all stuff in movies.
So
I hate.
I'm trying to be like, okay, I didn't really enjoy this that much, but I recognize all this stuff that's
Sure.
there.
James.
Go, James.
Well, everybody. It's
The tiebreaker.
all I have here is this movie does not live up to its reputation.
No.
The Babadook sucked.
Yes.
Okay, it sucked.
Yes.
I'm giving it a 4.75
4.75.
with the following
Oh my
caveat.
God.
That was a
David,
high
high
five.
fives.
It was reach. This is the following caveat. Either this movie does not say anything. It's not saying anything. There's no message in this movie. It's dumb. Or it is saying something, and it just went over my head despite me lying in my bed being like, what is this movie about? And I was trying to put it all together, and I'm too dumb. So I'm hoping on this podcast that Riley can explain it to me, all the stuff I missed, even though I also have kids that keep me up at night. And I'll be like, oh, I'm dumb. Now I get it. And this is a masterpiece. I'm hoping that happens. But nonetheless, the fact that it failed to convey it to me is another failing. So this movie, I wanted it off more than I wanted to watch it. 4.75. This is not even close to Hereditary.
No.
I don't know why people are like, oh, you like Hereditary? You watched the Babadook, watch The Witch?
That's exactly what I said to David yesterday. Like, word for word. I said, if you liked Hereditary, you will like this
Not
movie.
even close. There's nothing in common with Hereditary.
Has things in common, but it's like the cheap Chinese knockoff of Hereditary.
I didn't think it was going to be super low budget and stuff.
I want to enlighten you guys.
Do you guys
Please
still
do.
like that it's low budget?
Not when they can't execute any ideas well. Like, holy shit, man, all the scares are so pathetic.
Are you kidding me?
Had
It's scary.
about 20 fucking unintentional laughs from the first fucking scene.
Okay, guys,
holy
this is
shit.
going to be
This
the
is
most
crazy. This
That
is
car
wild.
crash was hilarious.
I'm completely
an indie
divided.
movie and being like, it's not Marvel.
Stop. We've never had this amount of disagreement. This is unprecedented. This is going to be insane right after this message from our sponsor, Private Internet Access VPN. Private Internet Access helps you hide your true IP address and your true feelings so you can bypass geo restrictions and censorship. You can connect up to 10 devices at once, and it includes an internet kill switch.
Oh,
Hello?
Babadook.
If your VPN gets disconnected involuntarily. PIA is available for Windows, Mac, Android, iOS, and even as a homemade weapon, so check it out at lmg.gg/carpoolcritics. We used to be called Carpool Critics. Now we're there just movies.
Sorry,
we haven't caught up on the sponsor things.
my brain was trying to click through our Hereditary review to find out what I gave Hereditary because I don't remember what I
You
read.
gave it
You're
low.
low.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
didn't like it.
But I don't think it was
No, I think
that
I gave it like
low.
a 6.75 or something.
Yeah, something like that.
I was like up in the 9s or something. I love that film.
I'm
I
mad
mean,
at you,
I
Riley.
definitely liked. I would say that I probably enjoyed watching Hereditary more. Parts of it were like more entertaining in terms of like a sit down entertain me experience.
Yeah.
But I liked this one way more in terms of like its execution on the themes and the tightness of the narrative and characters and the actor. Man,
Can't wait to
Her
learn.
acting is amazing.
she's an
she was good.
amazing
She was
actor.
really
And I want to
good.
be clear. I said it's low budget earlier, and that doesn't bother me. That's not one of the problems I have with this movie. I don't care that it's low budget. I think it's cool that it's Australian. I don't like especially in horror, horror and low budget go great together. So that's fine. I think it bothered me more that like I just couldn't really see what the movie was trying to say, and I also thought that Babadook himself was so stupid. It's just like it's a black shadowy top hat with sharp hands.
I want to agree with what you're saying because I don't think it's the low budgetness that's bad. It's the fact that they overreached with ambition from their budget. Like some of the stuff in this movie is like hilarious because they tried to go for something grand and it's so fucking silly.
Really?
Like, let's talk about that car crash. Holy shit!
Wait, but
she's
first-
sitting there.
We need to have some context for that.
Yes.
So for the people who aren't going to watch this movie and haven't seen it in a while, here's a recap. Amelia is a troubled and exhausted widow raising her 6-year-old problem child, Samuel, after his father, Oscar, died driving Amelia to the hospital during labor. Samuel behaves erratically, struggling to sleep and building weapons to fight an imaginary monster. One night at Sam's request, Amelia reads him a pop-up book called Mr. Babadook. Turns out it's about a pale-faced being with a top hat and taloned fingers who torments those who learn about it. Soon after, strange events occur. The house makes weird noises and Amelia finds glass shards in her soup, which Sam blames on the Babadook, who he's convinced is real. Amelia doesn't believe him and rips up the book, but when he has a vision of the monster and suffers a seizure, she gets him sedatives from their doctor, allowing her to sleep for the first time in days. The next morning, Amelia finds the Mr. Babadook book reassembled on her doorstep with new sections depicting Amelia killing their dog Bugsy, Sam, and then herself. Amelia burns the book this time, but her mental state slowly decays, and she eventually sees an apparition of Oscar who tells her to bring the boy to him. Amelia flees but is stalked through the house and possessed by the Babadook. Under its influence, she breaks Bugsy's neck and goes after Sam, but he lures her to the basement and knocks her out. Amelia awakens and tries to strangle Sam, but he caresses her face, causing her to vomit an inky black substance, seemingly expelling the Babadook, who drags Sam upstairs to the bedroom. There, the Babadook torments Amelia with a vision of Oscar's death, and that's the last fucking straw. Amelia confronts the Babadook, telling it that it's trespassing in her house, and if it touches her son again, she'll kill it. The Babadook then retreats to the basement, and she locks the door behind it. This is so funny, David. Soon after, Amelia and Sam recover, becoming attentive and caring to each other. They gather earthworms in their backyard, which Amelia takes to the basement. The Babadook tries to attack her, but she calms it down, and it retreats to the corner to eat its frickin' earthworms. Amelia returns to the yard to celebrate Sam's birthday. Ah, so nice.
Oh,
Okay.
so the
Now we have
Babadook is the embodiment of grief?
Okay, here's the thing that I don't get though.
David, you suck.
We
Shut
usually
up.
Suck.
we talk about the things we like first. So I want to set you guys
you're right,
up
you're
to
right.
do that for us. And by telling you what I don't get about this, because
Okay.
I understand, oh, cool, it's about grief. And the Babadook represents the grief. The grief gets inside of her and it's all consuming. The glass in her soup, it's like the car accident glass we see in the opening scene. She needs to deal with that. But then she doesn't. Like, she keeps it in the basement. I just don't get it. What were they trying to say?
Okay, so
You can never get rid of grief.
you can't get rid of grief. It's. I feel
But
like
hold on, but the Babadook also isn't
the Babadook
grief.
isn't just grief. The Babadook is mental illness, anxiety, grief, like any kind of sort of condition or like, you know, mental deal that people are dealing with.
as the
Especially-
Scientologist would say, a thetan.
Sure. People with mental conditions understand that you can't just like eradicate your anxiety or depression or whatever you have. Like, you can't just like destroy it. You have to learn to live with it and have coping mechanisms and have people around you to support you and learn more about yourself and what works for you and that kind of stuff. So the Babadook surviving in the basement is like, she has learned to subdue it, but she also has to go reckon with it from time to time. She can't just ignore it. And that to me is one of the coolest parts thematically, is the fact that the Babadook in the book, it's like, the more you deny my existence, the stronger I get, you know?
Yeah.
And when you first become aware of the Babadook, that's when it starts haunting you, because it's like this pervasive presence in your mind.
But if we're taking it with mental illness or grief, if you're not aware of it, it's fine.
Yeah, that's
Well, you don't know.
like they're
think
already
that's-
suffering
yeah,
the effects. They're
yeah.
suffering the effects before they read the book.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, okay, I watched a Vanity Fair interview with Jennifer Kent when she talks about what the Babadook meant to her, basically. And what she was saying is, yeah, if you have underlying mental health issues like depression or anxiety or grief, obviously you're not going to ignore it. She knows that it's been there the whole time. She's just been trying to kind of shelter it. And you see that in Samuel, because she hasn't been giving him like the love and appreciation that he needs as her child, because she somewhat like blames him for the murder, or I guess it wasn't a murder, but the death of her dad, or not his dad.
Yeah.
And so finally, after these 7 years, it's really starting to harbor on her. Like, she's really feeling this when Samuel's like actions are starting to show that she hasn't been giving him what he needs. And then the end, I will add to what Riley said, is showing like, this is how you healthily feed your grief, how you can healthily feed your depression and not have to hide it.
Right.
And then her son, like getting the worms before she gives it to the Babadook, is kind of her showing, okay, well, the son kind of also helps her healthily feed that grief rather than her pushing him away. She's
Right, it's something they manage together instead of
exactly.
her hiding that.
I like the idea of it, but I think there's also like, it's really thin, because that's not really how you deal with grief. It's just like, it's not just by like yelling at it, being like, I'm in control of you now, grief. It's like therapy and like support groups and all these
Well,
things.
Healthily
yeah,
feeding
right.
it, right?
Yeah,
What'd
I
you say?
guess.
Feeding it
I don't know. I don't
healthily.
think the movie like succeeds in like communicating that feeding it worms is like work the work.
I
don't
guess
know-
I kind of see what you're saying, because in another movie, like let's say, I actually don't remember how this resolves in Hereditary. Maybe that movie's a tragedy, but the themes there are similar, where there's grief and none of the family's communicating the whole time, and they have all these conflicts and they're just bearing them, not dealing with the conflicts. And if that movie weren't a tragedy, the solution would be for them to talk to each other finally and like
Yeah.
communicate finally. But in this one, they don't really do that. Instead, they just do like, here, Mummy is like, cup of worms.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Samuel asks her, "Oh, when do I get to see it?"
Yeah.
And she says, "Oh, when you're older, you'll understand."
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's
when you're a bit bigger.
basically, it's her saying, "Okay, well, you're not old enough to talk about this yet."
But that's
We'll wait till
ridiculous.
you're
What the
older."
fuck are you talking about? He's what, like grade 1, so 6 or 7? Like, of course he's old enough to talk about
He
grief.
understands
Well,
that his
obviously
dad
he
is
knows
dead.
there's
Yeah,
an
but-
issue. It's just that he's like, when can I see it? Like, when can she like fully explain the whole issue and how it all works and all that? You know, like he already has an understanding that the issue is there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like she doesn't need to be like, mommy has issues. It's like he knows she's got issues, and now they have come to a place where they are working together on it. But she's not going to completely let him in.
So is
onto
the Babadook her issues or both of their issues?
I mean, could be both. I don't know.
I think the child is a reflection of the mother. So
Okay.
well,
Yeah.
she's upstream of him.
In terms of the like, it doesn't do a good enough job of like being a metaphor for the actual work you have to do to like deal with it and
It's
stuff.
fine.
Like that's
It's
totally
fine.
fair.
But
That's
it's whatever.
But no, but that's fair. I was just gonna say that I think that I read it more as like an overall sort of like the vibe of what you need to do. Like
Sure.
instead of like at first you don't really know, like you might be dysfunctional in your life, but you don't really know why. And then you're aware of the problem, and once you're aware that you have this issue, you might be fearful of it. You might be like, "Oh, this is controlling my life," and the more that you that's a struggle. And then the moment that you that things start to get better is once you say, "All right, this is an issue, and I'm going to confront it. I'm going to make the decision to do something about it." And to me, that was the her confronting the Babadook up there and being like, "You're trespassing in my house," like no. And kind of like exerting her will over the situation instead of allowing it to control her. So that's and then so like that confrontation, that decision to do something about it could be therapy, it could be support from family and friends, like it could be whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Did she ever have a moment where she addressed the Babadook as something internal or something that she controls?
No,
Because I know that a lot at the beginning or in the middle section, it's all exogenous, right? She's saying to the cops, someone's stalking me. Someone brought a book to me, and it's like something from the outside. Is there ever a moment where she goes, like, I control you. I'm in charge of you.
Well, when she does that at the end, but what do you mean? You mean like
I'm just wondering if that was I just can't remember.
There's not really a moment where she's like, "Oh, the Babadook is me."
I believe that the point in time where that is somewhat addressed would be when she's screaming at it in the room with Samuel like clenched to her.
It would be.
Yeah, because I can't remember word for word what she says, but it's something along the lines of like, you can't control me, or you're in my house.
Mm-hmm.
You're not allowed to be here. Like I own my house.
I
Right.
love that ending, and I love that it subverts horror tropes. Like normally horror movies are such tragedies, and like everyone dies or everything goes wrong.
Yeah.
And I love that she gets control of it, and she beats the Babadook because she understands like the mental health aspect of it. And I think that's a real strength of this movie is that it starts off like a really generic horror movie, and then it ends somewhere more interesting for sure.
Yeah, man. Well, David, I think you and I were talking about this where it's like the more I didn't know how I felt about horror until we covered a bunch of horror movies on the podcast and talked about them in depth, and I was like, and I think at this point I'm like, I don't really love horror movies. But like I got to say, I think part of the reason that I haven't loved horror movies historically is because they often end up in these like dark ass endings where it's like, and everything sucked.
Yeah.
But maybe there's something to learn. But the important thing is everything sucks. Yeah. And so like I really appreciate when there's a horror movie like this where it's like the whole time I am just like terrified. Like I had chills throughout my body at so many points, and it's only an hour and a half movie. And
it felt so much longer though.
Yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I was never scared.
Really? Oh
I had a couple
terrified.
scares during the final showdown, like the last 20 minutes. There's a couple I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. But before then, man, like that Babadook is funny. He's a funny
Did you watch
buddy.
it with people?
No.
Okay, yeah, no. I watched it by myself as well, but like, I mean, I don't know.
But you like
think-
the uplifting ending is what you're saying.
I do. I like the uplifting
Because
ending.
you're not a dog person.
Oh, because the
I'm a
dog
dog
died.
person. I don't care.
Those dogs are ugly.
A lot of people
What is
watching
that, a
this
fluffy,
movie.
Bichon or
crusty
something?
dogs.
Yeah, like a Yorkie or something.
There's a lot of
Sorry,
people
everyone here
watching.
who has Yorkies, and I just hate those little fluffy, like
They're
red,
so crusty.
red crack eye dogs. Get out of here.
All the dog fans would be totally on board until the dog died, and they're like, "This movie sucks."
It's not even a cute dog, whatever.
No, I think horror and all harrowing experiences in movies, all stories. I mean, I like a story that's like, there's this horrible problem, and here's how these characters dealt with it. I don't feel there's much utility in being like, here's this horrible problem, and no one figured it out.
Well, there is utility because in those stories, it's here's this horrible problem, and here's what can happen to you if you don't deal with it. So
yeah, I guess so. But then it's like, I'd like to have a character in there be like, and so don't do this, do what this person did.
Well, they always have the chance. And then in that pivotal moment, they don't do what they're supposed to do. And
it's just like, what's the point of walking out of a theater? Like, I paid for a ticket, or I downloaded the thing or whatever, and then it's like I turn it off and I feel like shit. Who wants that?
But I mean, like, for me, that's how I feel about this movie. Like 85% of it is just like feelings. I'm like, this sucks. Like, this is not fun to watch. This is like human beings at their worst.
I know.
Not having a good time. And like, there's a slight upturn at the end, but I didn't really believe that they had earned it.
So this is exactly why.
It's just like an unpleasant movie. So it's an hour and a half of my life that I'm like, I'm not enjoying any part of this.
It didn't make you feel anything.
It made me feel like shit.
I mean, isn't
like,
that the point?
I mean, it made me feel like shit too.
Why would
Like,
But these are my personal ratings. Why do I want to watch a movie where I'm watching people go through trauma that are recreating fake trauma just for impact so that they can make a point? Like, that's not fun.
But that's every movie.
No, that's not. There's like
recreating fake trauma.
You mean the filmmaker or the character?
The characters are recreating it. But like, you're right, everything is fake, but there's moments of warmth and kindness and goodness. This movie is like constant shit. There is no
sometimes
and like
that's what life
that's
is
a big
like.
failure of this movie, is that it sucks at the positive negative. It's just fucking everything sucks. And
Okay,
so there's nothing that happens in this movie that's unexpected. You're like, okay, the scene starts, whatever the worst thing that can happen is gonna happen. Next scene, whatever the worst thing that's gonna happen, the worst thing happens.
Yeah.
And that is so boring and uninteresting.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think some of its saving grace is I want to say I agree with a lot of what you were saying there. Like, I felt like shit watching this movie. I did not like I think I watched most of it. I had 20 minutes left, and then I'm like, okay, I got to go to bed. I'm exhausted or whatever. And I told Lauren, my wife, I was like, because she didn't want to watch this movie because, like, I think after having a kid, she's just like, I can't deal with these like horror mother situations. And so I told her, I'm like, yeah, you definitely would not have enjoyed this movie because I usually am not emotionally affected by these things, but I just did not feel good watching this. Like, it was too real. And so I felt like shit the whole time, but I feel like seeing the you say that the metaphor isn't executed very well, but like I feel like it was executed well, and seeing all the depth that is there, I think that, like I said earlier, it's making me give it a higher score just because I feel like it was executed well on in terms of the metaphor. But yeah, it's not a fun experience.
Laura?
Okay. So another thing that Jennifer Kent said in this Vanity Fair interview was that people have become so desensitized to violence on screen. So she wanted to create an experience that didn't incorporate the violence that a traditional horror movie would have. And as somebody who does watch a lot of horror movies, I enjoyed feeling something differently than just watching somebody get slaughtered on screen.
Right.
Like, it made me feel like, I don't know, like I said before, I felt like crying at the end because there was this beautiful ending where the mother can finally give the kid everything that he needs to nurture and to grow. When you have a tragedy like this in your life, how are you going to deal with that? Everybody deals with grief differently, and just knowing that they can continue dealing with the grief together properly is just a great way to like conclude all of the whatever hour and a half that we just went through watching them and their family kind of deteriorate. Yeah,
I mean,
honestly,
that kid is irreparably traumatized,
I wrote-
regardless of where they got to at the end.
Yeah.
it's true. I wrote in the beginning too, they picked the perfect actor for him
my
because he just seems like the worst kid ever.
Yeah.
Like, he seems like a brat, and his scream hurts. Like, his scream hurts.
Yeah, when he's just like freaking out, he's just like,
Oh, yeah,
I love that.
it's
Shut
awful.
up!
I never realized that was where the meme comes from, where she turns back. She's like, "Why aren't you normal?" And he's like, "Ah!"
is it?
Oh, speaking about
that's
violence,
so
maybe, yeah, there's no, like, it's not a slasher movie, but there's a bunch of child abuse and she kills a dog, so it's still
violent.
pretty intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, people aren't being like, they're having their throats ripped open or something.
Did you find that the the thematic captured your attention in a way that you're parsing every action that's happening through the movie through that filter.
I tried.
Because I feel like it was obviously very clear that it was about grief. And so I'm like, okay, what is every action in this movie filtered through grief? And I felt like most of it wasn't really that well thought out. When you compare it to something like Hereditary, which I think to me is the gold standard of family trauma, grief, horror movies, I feel like you can carry in that feeling of like family trauma, like through generational cycles, and see that in every scene. In every single scene, there's some idea that's circling around that. And you can parse every action that every character takes through that lens. And I don't think that this movie has that. And I think that it's kind of thin in that way.
Yeah.
Did you guys feel that?
Yeah, I had kind of an interesting experience with this because I feel like it was affecting me the whole time, but I wasn't entirely sure why until like halfway through. So I'm not sure about like the first half of the movie and whether like that all, I think this would be served by a second watch.
Probably.
I'm not going to watch it again just because I'm like, I don't want to put myself through that one more time. But I feel like I would pick up on more and kind of be like, oh, that applies to the theme. That applies to the theme. But for me, watching it, my experience was kind of like, wait, so can this monster teleport?
Yeah.
It was some of that stuff, like in terms of like the lore and whatnot. I'm like, how is this working? And then later I was like, oh, it's just a metaphor.
Yeah, the mechanics of you can't even broach that subject. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like, is it like physically real? Would the neighbors be able to see it?
Yeah.
Like, does the book exist?
At one point, I thought the Babadook was like a representation of the kid, and I'm like, the kid is the real monster. And then the scene happened where he like sees the Babadook in the car and like freaks out and has a seizure. And I was like, oh, okay, so it's not the kid. It's an external monster.
I do think that there is kind of a staircase into the spiral because the kid is the one who starts to see the monster first and see it in his mom. He sees it in the car when she doesn't see anything. And then slowly she starts to see it too. And then she starts to go crazy because she's sleeping under the covers with Samuel. The first few nights she doesn't see anything. Then he sees it in the car, and then I believe it's like the next night after that she sees it on the ceiling, and then that's when everything starts to get more and more intense. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't know.
This movie did a great job of having you like squinting at the screen, like, what the hell is it?
Yeah, what's in that corner?
A dark scene, like, is that a mannequin? What the fuck?
I want to put this. Like, does the action serve the theme question to you though, James? Because apparently you say that you didn't know what the hell the movie was about.
I know, and I was sitting there being like, I get pieces of it.
Do you mean by the end of the movie, you're just like, I have no idea what's going on?
No, because I was trying to like make it all click because I had all the puzzle pieces, and I felt like I knew what they were kind of trying to do, but then for some reason it just never like clicked for me. Yeah, I guess I'm dumb, but
I don't think so.
I
don't know.
This is super interesting. I looked up a bunch of stuff because obviously I was like, there's depth here, so I watched some like video essays and stuff to see what other people.
You.
No, I'm not saying it's better than you. I always do this.
I know you do, but I knew that if I had done that, I would have been like, oh, but I didn't want to.
Gotcha. Well, no, but my point here is that some of the video essays I came up on were like, they completely missed the point.
Yeah.
They're just like, it's a monster movie. There's a bunch of things like how to kill the Babadook.
No,
would you survive against the Babadook?
Yeah, but that's what people love.
And
People
the
love that
Babadook
shit.
is, and it's like
Babadook
the Babadook
versus Jason.
The Babadook is probably an ancient demon that teleports through the shadows and is unable to use its powers in light.
Those
That
are
is
lore-
the best listicle voice.
Riley, though, that's
so perfect.
That's what lore people sound like.
Well, no, but this is what I'm saying. I'm like, this isn't a lore movie. The
No,
Babadook
it's not.
it doesn't have a set of qualities that you could quantify. It's just like a representation.
I also
of this
just don't
stuff.
like the design of the Babadook.
Really? I
It's
thought it was
just
great.
cheesy to me. It's like a broomstick with a top hat on it, and
Okay,
like
but
like
that's
a collar.
the brilliance of it. I loved the idea of taking like this child's pop-up book and like he's got a goofy design because that's the inception of it.
Yeah, I understand
It's like
that.
this
That's fine,
goofy
too.
child monster.
It could be a book still. I think just I don't know, look a little different.
I love the pop-up books.
Yeah.
I think like the first time it shows up, I'm like, ooh, that's creepy. The second time when it's torn up and it's like amps up, and then there's like the like pops up of her with the knife and shit. I'm like, this is sick.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is so cool and like creative and fun, and like that's a great way to use your limited budget to build scares and build atmosphere.
Right.
So I'm into that. But when you see the Babadook himself, it's a little cheesy. And the way he
Yeah.
moves, they skip the frames and shit. I'm like, oh, it just looks cheap.
I will
yeah,
say,
yeah. And then they have those like Wilhelm scream dinosaur
Yeah.
noises. I was like, what
Yeah.
movie is that
A lot of
from?
people-
Like, probably a
A
lot.
lot of people
Yeah.
were complaining about them using like stock monster noises and stuff, like and it's like you see, like I think some of them are from Resident Evil.
Hell yeah. Okay, this
but-
movie's a 7 now.
But at the same time, I'm like, I feel like while I was watching it, I was like, that's a pretty standard like roaring noise or whatever, or like growling noise in the background. But it didn't really. I feel like the movie telegraphs to you pretty early that it's a low budget movie,
From the first frame.
and so from that point on, I'm like, I'm gonna forgive basically anything that I see as something that is a manifestation of that low budget. Like the fact that the Babadook, you know, they're obviously not spending a ton of it was all in camera. There's no CGI. It's all just like practical stuff that they filmed, and I was just kind of like,
stuff.
yeah. And so I'm
cool.
kind of like, I give it that grace because I'm like, I know that you're just doing what you can.
You're right. It's way better than if they built a really shitty CG model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess my expectations, though, because everyone was just like, oh, yeah, there's Hereditary, there's the Babadook, there's the Witch. I just thought it was going to be like that opening shot of Hereditary with like zooming into the
Oh my
dollhouse
God,
and then it
yeah.
fades into like the actual.
That shot's
I was
probably-
expecting it to be like that.
That single shot probably cost the entirety of this movie, I guess.
I guess, yeah, but I guess, you
Or
know.
it looks like it does.
I think that I don't think it's fair to compare them.
Well, sure, it's not, but I'm just saying what my expectations were.
And that's what
that
we're
colors
not,
you're viewing.
we're not creating that comparison. Like that's a comparison I've seen
but then
online
like
a lot.
as soon as you figure out, or pretty early on in the movie, that it's a low budget movie. Then
I mean, like, there's
I don't know. When I hear the Wilhelm scream dinosaur noise, that I immediately was like, I have heard that.
Yeah,
Where have I
for
heard
sure.
that from? That's like a movie. That's a moment where you're like chuckling, and it like pulls you out of the movie.
Yeah.
For me,
Same with,
that was
like-
my experience.
really,
Yeah,
I don't
from-
know. I just kind of
like you can do like I think the idea of how they do the car crashing in the beginning is ingenious. Having it be like just abstract and like the lights passing and having the lights do the cycle so you can kind of fake it. But it's the fact that like when they threw the glass, they threw like a tiny fucking handful
yeah,
of
that
glass.
looks dumb.
I
And
will
it's like,
agree, yes.
I've worked on a lot of shitty short films or indie films where like you have like blood spray and someone has like a little bit of like a bucket of blood and you're like, it's gonna be so much blood, and it's just like like a little sliver, and you're like, okay, let's reset, let's redo it.
Yeah.
Like we need 5 times more, and you have to stop and redo it. And like, I'm like, why the fuck didn't they? They had like in an abstract studio. They had like a tiny handful of glass. It looks so bad. And then the car disappears, and then she fucking like moonwalks back into the bed. It is so bad. It is
like
so
wait,
cheesy.
but that's like
part
interpretive
didn't even
dance.
bother
That's
me.
like
Oh, it was so silly with the speed ramp.
okay, but
I
you know
could
what?
not handle
okay,
it.
so one thing that I saw an interview with what's her name, Jennifer Kent.
Yeah.
Sissy Spacek.
And what? I saw an interview with.
She is Australian Sissy Spacek. I know that's not the director, but that actor is Australian Sissy Spacek.
The
Who's
actor
Sissy
is?
Spacek?
She's Carrie and
Okay.
yeah.
Wait,
I am
she's the wife in The Shining, right?
No.
no.
Oh no, who's that?
That's Shelley Duvall.
Oh, Shelley Duvall. Oh, whoopsie. Okay. Anyways, wow, where was I? The Jennifer Kent interview, and she was saying that she wanted the movie to have this sort of like on stage feeling, like for it to kind of look like theater a bit. So, I mean, and we see that in like the harsh lighting and stuff. Like the house is often not lit like it's a real house. It's
Yeah.
lit as if it's some
Coronation
set.
Street.
Yeah. And so when she did that kind of like interpretive dance thing back into the bed, falling into the bed in the dream sequence, I was just kind of like, okay, this is like if I went to see a theater production and they were being overly dramatic with their movements.
But you
and
watched
stuff.
You watched the interview before you watched the movie?
No, afterwards.
All right.
No, but I'm saying while I watched it, I got that feeling, and
Okay.
then it made sense when I saw the.
It's like you were saying about the scream. It's one of those things my brain makes a connection to a funny part, and I'm like, oh yeah, we're watching a Mel Brooks movie.
I will say that the falling into bed thing is the only thing that bothered me.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I just didn't understand what she was trying to do. Like what conceptually, what was she thinking when shooting that?
It was supposed to be like falling into bed, like slow mo, but they didn't have the budget, so they have to do that like TikTok trick where you put the bed.
But
up
like,
really
you're
quick.
asking, what is she trying to get across?
Yeah.
Like this trauma's with her in her dreams when she's sleeping or something?
I
and then
guess so.
Yeah.
But at the
I,
same time, it just
She's trying to be Ari Aster.
I saw somebody
Yeah,
say
it's-
that we have the like the car crash dream sequence, and then she kind of like falls right from that into her bed as if the 6 years that have passed since then
but
just
she does it
happened in an
again.
instant.
Like it happens again, and that's when
Yeah.
I was like, okay, why are we reusing this?
Yeah.
I understand the first time, but the second time it didn't
I
make
think that-
sense to me.
Was the second time when she was able to sleep for the first time in a while? I think that she kind of like falls back and then
Can't
she's
remember.
like, and then it like cuts to her waking up and it's 11 a.m. and he's still sleeping.
Maybe.
Oh man,
You know what really did
The dream.
Nice.
What did
Yeah.
work for me though? What effect did work for me is when the little boy in the final battle it gets like yanked against the
Yeah.
wall and flying around. That
That's
totally,
fair. Up the stairs stuff.
yeah, that was
pretty good.
awesome.
That
I
was
thought that
pretty good.
totally worked, and I thought that was exciting. That was a good part of that sequence.
Yeah. I want to be clear. It's not that it's low budget. You can do a really good low budget movie. There's
Yeah.
lots of good low budget horrors. Like you just have to be smart with what you're aiming for. And they just overreach. Like that car crash sequence is a big overreach for what their budget was. The falling into bed, big overreach for what they're falling into bed. All the times they do a big speed ramp with her like being like shaky,
Right.
big overreach. And it's not that you could do this movie and just like remove that element. Like they should have just cut it in editing.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work, and like maybe reshoot something different.
You're kind of convincing me a little bit here, David, that the technical side, at the very least, of this movie is more lackluster than it could have been. Because like I gave it a lot of slack for being an indie movie, but at the same time, when I'm watching these, I think you are more like technically proficient in that production side of things, and I feel like when I watch things, I'm more looking at like the themes and the characters. That's more interesting to me.
So, do you think it's fair to work that into your rating? So, like, let's say you rate this movie a 9, and you're like, I know that it's it's not freaking Dune. It's like visually or Hereditary,
Yeah.
but it's good as what it's trying to do. I get what it's trying to do, and I love that, and I'm giving it a 9. But then, is that really a good rating? Because you could imagine it's the same movie. It's Babadook, the same script, except she had made 5 movies before and she had 10 times the money, and it was just the sickest version of the Babadook. Shouldn't that have a higher rating?
No, I don't think I would appreciate it as much. I really love these small indie film artists and cinematographers. She made work with what she had, with the amount of money that she had. I don't like CGI. That's one of the reasons why I love Tarantino movies.
I'm not
'cause he
saying it
doesn't
needed
use
more
CGI.
CG.
No,
But
definitely
like,
not.
if there was a higher budget, I don't know what else they could do in order to portray what they were trying to portray. Like, I think everything fell in line with what she was trying to do, and it came across to me exactly as what she
they could
But
have
intended.
thrown more fake
it's the
glass
little
at her.
things like that scene with the mean moms. Like you just cast better actors. You cast way better actors.
Oh, yeah.
See,
You
but I
do
don't
that. You
know.
shoot that a little
Supposed
more
to-
interesting. Like, it's supposed to be take me out of the movie. Is that what it's supposed to do?
No. They were just all supposed to be
They're supposed
the
to be
opposite of
caricatures.
what she is.
Yeah.
I totally understand that. I understand they shoot at a low angle to make them seem more imposing. I understand what they're going for, but I'm saying that like those are cheap Australian actors that cost $500 a day.
Okay, now you're making fun of them just being from
No,
Australia.
but what he's trying to say is like he's picking up what I'm putting down, where it's like, okay, you get Morgan Freeman instead of it's just
Yeah.
it could be better.
yeah.
You get a cinematographer that can actually light that house properly and make it look good.
Wait, what do you
It
mean?
looks bad. It looks cheap. It looks
Apparently, that
That's what I'm
was a
saying with
choice.
That's what
Coronation
they say.
Street.
That's what they say after when they realize that their movie looks bad.
Well, no, because the director, the interview I watched her in, she was talking about another one of her films too, and she's like, in this movie, I went for this lighting, and like they show clips of it, and I'm like, that looks like well lit or whatever. But for this one, I wanted this very specific like harsh lighting stage thing,
Super dark.
and so I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I mean, while I was watching it, I was like, this is a choice. I didn't really understand whether I liked or didn't like the choice, because but like. The effect that it has is definitely to kind of unsettle you and make things look bleak and stark and not
But
comfortable.
I can see what they were going for, but I feel like they just landed in the middle zone where they didn't have quite enough control to land on the like we're going full theatrical, and it's not quite like cinematic. It's in this like gray zone in between, and it's just messy.
But I think that it being in that gray zone in between is unsettling.
Yeah.
You're like, what is this real? Is this not?
I mean, we're all having different experiences, so
Yeah.
like maybe I'm glad that that's what you guys got, but for me, it absolutely just is one of those things. It makes a connection in my brain to a part of my brain that I don't want to activate when I'm watching a movie.
Here's another choice: having like a 6 or 7-year-old in your movie.
Ooh,
He was hit or miss. There was
Yep.
times where I was like, yeah, this kid's doing a good job, and there's other times, meh, not so much.
see,
What do you think, Sarah?
Well, another part of this interview, I think we watched the same one.
yeah, maybe.
She was saying how the kid was basically immersed in a completely different movie.
Yeah.
She didn't want him to feel like he was in a horror. She wanted him to feel like he was in like something else. So for the scene where
I think he knew he was in a scary movie, but
yeah,
Yeah.
he just he didn't get to experience a lot of the scenes that the actress was going through.
Right, she just wasn't there. It's like
Yeah.
shot, reverse shot, but
Yeah.
it's like she was there, but like they
reading it
have-
differently.
So yeah, what they had was when Amelia was on the dolly going towards him, essentially they had the director, Jennifer Kent, also on the dolly, and they were saying, oh, we're going to take your Legos away. We're going to put them in a bag and fill it with cement and throw it in the ocean just to get that reaction from him, rather than what she's actually saying is, I'm going to like
fucking kill you.
Yes, squeeze your head in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
it's a brick wall or something.
There'll be no Oreo cookies tonight.
Exactly.
No Tim Tams for you.
Yeah.
I gotta say though that like I think there were parts where I'm kind of like, I can see the acting here. Like I can see the kid being the illusion was broken. I'm like, this is a kid actor that I'm watching right now. But I feel like it almost worked because the kid, the character that he was portraying was just whack. He's just crazy. He's just out of it. Like he's uncontrollable. And so like, I feel like he
seemed like a pretty good kid to me.
He had the kind of, what?
I've seen way whacker kids than
Oh
that.
no, sure. But I just mean the fact that like, he goes to sleep and he's like squeezing her, like he's like
neck.
grinding
Yeah, that
his
made me
teeth and like
uncomfortable.
squeezing her neck while he's sleeping, and he's fidgety and he's like kicking her seat. And
That
like
was
going,
too real, man.
Yeah.
My daughter has to be horizontal. Like wherever way you want to sleep, she's perpendicular to you, and her feet are just like on your head and like just kicking your face. You're like, why? Just rotate. Why?
Does she sleep on your bed?
Sometimes.
Okay. When she's scared.
No,
From the Babadook. Don't get me started.
Not getting into it here.
Yeah, I kind of like forgave it, I think, a little bit because like he had this like glassy eyed thing going on a little bit.
Yeah, he really seemed like the kind of kid that would do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I totally felt for him too because it wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
And and I love what the movie does and like you hate him. I hated this kid. He's so annoying. Like, and obviously he's, you don't blame him for what he's doing or whatever.
still hate him, yeah.
But he's so irritating. And by the end of the movie, he's kind of like saving the day a little bit. And now I'm kind of like rooting for him, and I'm like more on his side. Like the reversal.
You knew that from the beginning.
Huh?
The very like the first or second scene where he's like, "I'm gonna hit it on its head." You're like, "Oh, you're gonna defeat the monster." Okay, cool.
Oh, sure. I just mean the
it's all
execution of it is great because we start on the mother's side hating the kid, and by the end we're on the kid's side hating the mom, and then things come to a resolution, and it's beautiful.
They did a good job of setting up her character so that she's likable. Like they do the opposite of Save the Cat in this one. She kills a dog. You can't have a character who just murders a dog unless you've done so much work to set them up as a good person.
Yeah.
And that's why she works at that care home and takes out her neighbor's garbage for her. And she really cares for everyone in this movie except her son a lot.
Well, I have a question. I didn't really understand the point of her coworker at the nursing home. Like the male coworker. What was the point of his character? Like what did he bring out in that conflict?
You won't let me have a dad.
Oh, okay.
Not getting over the romantic aspect of the trauma.
Right.
I
Because
guess
he was
so.
interested, obviously.
And also just to show that she is obviously not ready to accept what's happened to her husband.
Fair. Okay.
So,
She's not over him that way. She's not ready to move on.
yeah.
I just want to say, because we have said that it made us uncomfortable, or David and I anyways, Jennifer Kent said that she really, really wanted to make the audience uncomfortable. Because I think that part of the reason why she's interested in these kind of stories is to give us a window into like the experience of a mother or whoever dealing with this kind of stuff. I think the other movie that she was talking in this interview that Sarah and I both apparently watched is, I forget what the name of the movie is.
The Nightingale.
The Nightingale.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't know the plot of the movie, but there's something involving a woman being in a sexual assault rape situation and she's in danger. And
A young Irish convict woman chases a British officer through the rugged Tasmanian wilderness bent on Tasmanian? Yeah, I know that word. I've seen that word before. Yeah, I shouldn't have done that. Bent on revenge for a terrible act of violence he committed against her family.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, okay, there
Anyways, the point is that her whole deal apparently is to not shy away from like putting you in this position of like everything sucks, everything's uncomfortable, I'm dealing with stuff that I don't understand type of stuff. And I felt it.
Great.
Me too.
I'm glad.
What did you think about all the sleep deprivation stuff in this movie?
Oh man.
How did that track
It
to the
felt
mental
pretty
illness
real.
and stuff?
It felt real. Like, I mean, well, actually, this isn't really a good example, but I have really bad anxiety. And so I knew I had to get up early this morning. And so come like the middle of the night, I'm I keep dreaming that I'm waking up late.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she was going through very similar experiences, but obviously grieving the loss of her husband. And so, sleep deprivation and mental health, I think it was portrayed great in this movie, honestly. And you can see it in her face, too. She's got bags. Her hair isn't done
Her
properly.
looks haggard.
Like,
Yeah, I think her journey into insanity or to whatever, into Babadookness is a huge strength of the movie in terms of like her performance and the believability of it. I think to me, it's one of the least thematically interesting parts of the movie. It's like in terms of experience, like that's such a horror movie thing. Like everyone fucking slowly goes crazy in a horror movie and like things go from like kind of weird to really weird, and it takes about 30 minutes in the middle, and like it's like that's the stuff I'm like, all right, let's fucking get through it. Okay.
I feel like I'll say something to you that you guys all said to me during Hereditary, which is that like that's just kind of the genre, you know.
That's
like,
movies,
you
baby.
need to have somebody slowly going insane in a horror movie. It's kind of unless
yes and
it's
no though, but like that's like the most tropish of horror movies. Like there's slashers, and then there's the character going crazy movies.
I guess so, but I don't know. Like if somebody wasn't being tormented, it's not really a horror, is it?
I mean, what's scarier?
Yeah, but there's other ways. There's other ways of like doing horror, like Get Out, like Us.
Yeah, but Get Out is barely horror. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's more
more
like
of a thriller.
thriller territory.
Anyways,
Yeah.
I think I'm like,
But
I'm
okay,
kinda
but
with you there, where
genre, if it's 2-3 stories, like then why do we need to keep fucking making these movies? Like
exactly.
it's
That's
a
my
boring,
point. I don't like horror.
The idea that this movie gets across is good, but it should be a student short film. It should be 14 minutes, and that'd be like sick. This is a great short film.
By the way, this movie is actually based off of a short film
0% surprise.
that Jennifer Kent wrote
course.
and directed in 2005 called Monster,
Right.
which is exact same concept. Like, honestly, you probably could have watched it, come and done this show. And
Fuck yeah.
10 years
Well,
earlier.
That's something that directors do, right? They'll make a short film to be a concept, and then like people will be like, "Oh, this is cool," and then they make it into a longer film.
You know
That
what
happens
this
all the
needs?
time.
More top hat silhouettes.
yeah. And she also said that she never wants there to be a second film. Like,
A sequel
a
came
sequel, yeah.
imagine
She
a
never,
Babadook?
she refuses to let anybody make a sequel of this movie.
Babadook.
Did she invent,
Which,
I
did she
mean,
invent
sure,
that monster? Did she invent that monster?
The Babadook?
Yeah.
I actually didn't look into that.
I was trying to. I
Where's
didn't
the
see
name come
any.
from?
I didn't see any references to like the origin of the name Babadook. Or
I heard
anything.
it was just supposed to sound like a made-up kid's
Yeah.
like storybook character.
I don't know where my expectations came from, but I thought it was like some kind of ancient fable from like Polish lore or something like that, and it was gonna be super creepy and like more of an animal or something. But turns out it's just a
Oh my god, why are people so dumb? Is the Babadook a real, like, is the Babadook real? And I was like, oh, like, is it like based off a true story or based off like a legend or something? And it's like, no, is it real? Is the Babadook actually a creature?
Do I need to watch out for that book?
You guys are why?
The answer is yes, actually. Literally, it's yes.
Watch out.
I gotta say that we kind of alluded to this earlier, but like at points in the movie, I'm kind of I it's particularly like the low budget parts. I'm like, this seems like a short film. This seems like a student film.
Yeah.
And again, because of that, I kind of I gave it. But so what I will say is I think I'm going to lower my rating.
Okay.
Because based on our discussion here, I think I'm realizing that there is a technical execution aspect that is.
Do you disagree with Sarah?
What do you mean?
The question earlier about like should it be in your rating and like if there's a better.
Oh yeah, I wanted to address that because I think for me, I often will like I don't have like 2.5 out of my score is technical execution, 2.5 is story, and 2.5 is acting. Like I don't have like things like that. I just kind of like if it makes me feel so much, I'm gonna overlook the technical shortcomings and give it a higher rating. You know, so I think that's what happened to me here. But kind of in analyzing this, I'm realizing that there are some technical aspects that could have been better. Like even being a low budget movie. So I'm gonna give it a 7 just because it also just really made me uncomfortable. I think the themes are great, but like maybe I could have had a bit more fun.
I'm gonna bring it up.
Sure.
I'm gonna bring mine up.
Yeah, I think you should.
I'm going up to a 5.5.
That's great.
My
I
rating
support
was
it.
perfect as it was.
4 out of 10. You're staying there, eh?
Because you can do low budget movies and like really make it fucking work. Like not a fair comparison is The Raid was made for like $1.1 million, and that's like
What was the budget on this puppy though?
And that was
$2
a
million.
brilliant metaphor.
Rocky was made for of police brutality.
Yeah.
Or like Rocky was made for 1.1 million, Reservoir Dogs for 1.2. Like you don't need a lot of money. You just have to like understand what you're putting on the screen, and I don't feel like they understood what they were putting on the screen.
You are talking about a couple of decades difference with some of those.
For sure,
movies you cited.
For sure.
I will like okay,
But
so
I mean, I don't think the inflation from like 91 to 2014 is like 200%, is it?
No. Sarah?
oh, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I just don't think that those technical mishaps or technical like whatever did.
Shortcomings.
Yeah, that I don't think those technical shortcomings like made my viewing experience any worse or any better.
I guess
like it just was part of the movie for me. And if I enjoyed the movie, I enjoyed the acting, I enjoyed the themes in the movie, and it made me feel something. Like it did its job.
I guess like I agree. There's sometimes where like the scrappiness of a really low budget movie can kind of be charming. Like something like Hedwig and the Angry Inch. It's really low budget and you can see the rough edges at every fucking scene.
Yep.
But that's charming to me because like that's part of like the world and the character. But the low budgetness doesn't add anything to me in terms of the story or the theme. Like like maybe she's poor, so the movie is poor. Like it doesn't really feel like it's connected. It just feels like it's a failure of this film.
Like some of the creepy moments where we see the Babadook. It's better to have this practical effect than to use like a really bad cringy CGI
yes,
stuff.
100%.
But it's still kind of cringy because you're like, it looks like a student film. It doesn't look like a real horror monster. Although I gotta say,
I like the Babadook parts.
I felt like it was a real monster.
Yeah,
I was scared.
The Babadook stuff isn't the stuff that bothers me.
I don't want to overstate it all though, like because I agree with Sarah in that it's like we've been talking a lot. We're giving outsized amount of time on this podcast to something that's really like probably impacts your viewing experience by like 5 or 10%.
Sure. It's true.
Whereas like the rest, the other 90 to 95% is the stuff Sarah's talking about. That really
for sure.
Yeah.
And like I'm heavily skewed towards feeling that stuff because that's the stuff that like I notice in movies a lot. And so you're right. We're spending way too much energy on discussing that matter. I'm sorry.
So I'm sorry, everyone.
Because there's nothing else to talk about because this movie sucks.
I got a hit pick.
No.
All right.
Best spook in the whole movie when she's watching that news footage of like the mom that killed the kid.
Oh yeah.
And then she's in the window and she's that smile. That's the best scare in the whole movie. I was like,
really?
I hate that. Yeah.
Oh,
It's not
that
a jump
didn't- that
scare,
didn't
but
get me
it's-
at all.
It didn't
it's
jump me,
just
but it's like,
creepy.
yeah,
It's
it
really
really
creepy.
got it like twisted something in my heart.
Man, yeah, no, that didn't get me at all because I feel like, oh, we're going in on the window. She's gonna be in the window.
Oh, of course.
But then
It was the
like-
smile though. It was like
it was a good
So
smile.
creepy.
It was a good creepy smile. Like every time the Babadook music, like the little like stuff in the background kind of started to come up, I just like started like getting chills or whatever. I don't know. I just like I was entranced. Yeah. Are we doing hit pigs and nit pigs?
Yeah, do it.
I love how the child protective services people or the child welfare people, when the first time they come around, they're like kind of scary, and you're like, oh no, it's like they're gonna find out that she's insane and take away the kid and blah blah blah, all that stuff. And then after they confront the Babadook, they're like comic relief.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like a couple
love that.
silly characters, like, oh, you're having a party. It's like you've been in here, you've been sitting here the whole time. There's a big party thing in the back. Yeah.
I do like that ending that there is no like quick dark turn right at the end. Like I was expecting to have like darkness show up or something, but it's nice that they like fully commit to the happiness,
Right.
which is nice. That's a hit pick. For
and
me.
it's like the darkness is there, but they're living with it, and there's resolution, even though it doesn't feel super happy to still have this monster locked in the basement. The best thing would be to kill it or to get rid of it or whatever.
But
Although
not possible.
it's a horror movie, it'd probably be like, but it's not dead. So there's definitely still a dark feeling at the end, but yeah, no, it is like it's like the best possible realistic resolution type of situation.
hit nitpick. What is the point of her losing her tooth?
Yeah, I was confused.
I don't quite understand what the body horror element of that is. It's like yeah, we want like a scare, I guess, of her going crazy, but I don't
That did
know.
seem kind of extraneous.
I didn't understand that part either. I mean, maybe she has been like clenching her jaw or grinding her teeth so much that her tooth or her molar comes out. But yeah, I don't. Really
Yeah,
know
so that's
what
an
it was
example of what you were
alluding to.
talking about earlier about like how is everything in service of the theme, or is there
Yeah.
some stuff that's just like
I think because the themes are so heavy in this movie, I wanted to like when that was happening, I was like, oh, because the Babadook possessed her, and then she kept like rubbing her jaw as if like the Babadook was like in her jaw or something. So that when she took the tooth
well,
out,
that was
I was
all
like,
after the glass and the soup thing, so I thought it was all related to that. I thought she was going to keep pulling out glass.
you thought it was
Yeah,
just
I
like
thought it was just gonna be a big chunk of glass. Which
She's
and I
not
like
upset.
that as a horror element of like I think that works and is effective. The first time she pulls out the bloody glass,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, that's creepy, but it ties into
there's
the
glass from the car
yeah,
accident,
exactly.
so that makes
that
sense.
works, and I like that. But yeah,
Yeah, I didn't make that connection at all.
oh really?
The glass from the
I didn't
car
until this
accident.
podcast.
Oh, okay.
That's what I assumed it was.
That makes sense.
I just thought it was like, oh, Babadook's doing some scary shit. He was trying to mess up your life by putting glass
yeah.
in your bowl.
Spooky.
Spooky.
Although,
Glass
yeah,
soup.
I guess you
Here's a hit pick.
valid connection.
The visual storytelling of there's an early shot that is establishing during the setup phase of this movie of it's an overhead shot of the bed with the mom and the kids together sleeping in the bed, and it just tells you, oh, dad's gone.
Yeah.
Like very efficient.
Yeah.
A hit pick for me is that the television is almost used as another character in this film. Like a lot of times it's saying something about the movie or to the character that you kind of pick up on. Like there's a scene with koalas on the TV and the voice person says, koalas don't ever leave their babies.
Right.
And you're like,
Yeah.
oh.
And then everybody gets chlamydia.
They have two penises.
Yeah.
And then another thing too is that Samuel's whole magician thing is, so
What was up with that?
he kept saying life isn't always what it seems, but it can be wondrous. And then when it cuts to the TV and he's watching it, the magician on the TV says life isn't always as it seems, it can be wondrous, but it can also be treacherous. And I found it interesting that Samuel didn't repeat that last part.
Wait, I think he
I think
did.
he does he not?
No.
I think
thought
the
he-
first time he does it, he says the treacherous part.
I
Does
thought-
he?
Yeah.
And then we hear it on the TV.
Okay.
But that would be really cool.
What do you think? What do you think's the
I
thematic
swear.
importance? Sorry.
No, no, keep going.
What is the thematic importance of him being a magician?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm there's probably something
His
there.
happiness is an illusion. His
Well, is the top hat his dad's top hat? Because it's seen hanging above his trench coat and shoes in the
I think his
basement.
dad was a musician.
yeah,
maybe.
with a violin.
I mean, there could be something there where it's like life isn't always as it seems, because it's like you think you're dealing with one thing, but really it's an interdimensional demon. No, I don't know. I mean, but like, you know, it could be you think that your issue is one thing, or that you think that you're just like sleepless, or that your kid's just crazy, but really you have a separate issue that is causing kind of more things in your
Maybe
life.
we're overthinking it, and they just wanted to give him a hobby that his mom goes from disinterested in to interested in. Because earlier in the movie, it's like, "Mommy, look, mommy, look, you have to look, mommy."
Yeah, I
and
mean,
then later on, he does a trick, and she, oh, that's really great.
who
if his
knows?
dad was a musician, it'd be more interesting if he was a musician, and then they could like use music. It's like in horrifying ways. I think that would be a more interesting take on it. But that's
Yeah.
been done too.
Yeah, music.
But,
I mean, I don't know. Music as a connecting thing would be really cool. But
Nitpicky question: where did he get the dove?
I was just gonna say that. Where the hell did that pigeon come from?
He's stealing.
Guys,
honestly,
it's magic.
honestly,
duh.
in that moment, I was kind of like, "Is the Babadook helping them do magic? They're gonna take this on the road."
Here's a hit pick: the neighbor lady.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love
she was
her.
lovely.
Very
She's
sweet.
So
Well,
wholesome.
and it's kind of interesting because the mom is full possessed, and then she comes to the window or the door, and you get like the nice, cool shot of just her eyes, like, and she's clearly crazy, but she says like "I love you," or it shows an act of love, and it kind of breaks the full power of the
Yeah,
the
I noticed
spirit.
that.
And I think that's a really cool moment when it's like all it takes is like even like a neighbor, a stranger, just showing a little bit of love, and it can break this cycle just enough that you can actually deal with it. I was
Yeah.
like, that's cool.
Yeah, I love that. And then we kind of see it again when she's like strangling. I mean, it's not the exact same thing, but like she's strangling him, and he's being strangled, and he like caresses her face gently,
yeah.
and she's like, "What the fuck am I doing?"
yeah.
Yeah, it kind of like it can break. I feel like people get stuck in this cycle of like pain and hurt, and then they hurt other people, and it's like over and over and over until somebody decides to be like, you know what, I'm gonna be kind for no reason.
No.
And that'll break it.
Nope.
Yeah. I don't think I had any of
That's about it.
That's about it.
Anyone else?
Maybe.
Oh wait, the TV.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Well, one thing I feel like there's lots of stuff with the TV
There is.
that you could break down, or you had more to say about that.
I didn't organize my notes,
Oh,
so
okay.
I would have to like go through and find them. But I wrote down specific things with the TV. Oh, another thing too is when she's watching TV after she sees the Babadook for the first time, is it's this like weird and creepy black and white film incorporating the Babadook. And you've seen the things on the TV before, so you know this is obviously not something that's showing on TV. Is she like hallucinating it? Is she seeing it in her sleep? Like, I don't know. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, it's just like it's an all encompassing and it's just taking up outsized space in her thoughts. Like she can't even watch and enjoy TV. She's still looming in the background of her mind.
The thing that I think I noticed about the TV was that she was like flicking between channels and stuff, and it would show like commercials, and there was like one where it's like, oh, moms lose weight with this thing or whatever, and there was like a bunch of like commercials related to domestic life or like societal expectations of people, and I feel like it was just another one of the kind of stressors that can weigh on someone who's like, okay, on top of being a mother and on top of trying to provide for your family, you're also supposed to be well kept, and you're supposed to like put on a good face for your friends and family.
Right.
Oh, that's another thing I wanted to bring up was the moms at the birthday party. Like, David, you said that they were like bad actors or whatever. It was over the top, but I feel like that was kind of the point where it's like we are living with Amelia, and she does not have her shit together. You know, she's not having a good time, and she's struggling. And then we cut to these perfectly well-kept ladies, and they seem as if they're overacting, but it's like that's probably what they look like to Amelia. They're acting. They're fake. You know, they're not real people. They're just like, oh yeah, so this is what happened. We're going to the party. My
husband's going to the golf club this afternoon. Or he can't make it to the golf club.
That was it. Yeah, exactly. And so that was another thing to me where it's like that is sort of like it comes across as a low budget thing, but to me it served the purpose, served the plot and the theme.
Sure.
So they were all wearing black as if it was a funeral. It was
it's always so hard with movies like this because like you do have to give it the benefit of the doubt, and it's like it's up to you to bring that positivity in, and like if you don't, fuck you, movie.
Yeah,
I didn't bring that. Didn't bring that positivity, so fuck you, movie.
Yeah, fair. Well, and fuck you.
Yeah, fuck me.
yeah.
I'll see you later, Riley.
No. I just mean there.
No, 100%.
The movie and the viewer have to have a handshake 100%. To agree that
100%.
Question: why does the Babadook need to go inside of her, and then it gets expelled out of her, but then it still has power?
Because they need the visual for expelling the grief.
The puking of the black
It's a good
tar.
visual.
Because it was tormenting them before it actually got into her. Then it got worse.
I think the possession is less like it was external to you and now it's internal, and more kind of like this is the point at which you are allowing this thing to control you instead of like...
so it's just a ramp up in a severity.
Yeah,
it's like, the grief has pretty much become who she is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do like that puking of the ink. I think that's a strong visual.
Yeah,
cool.
It is. Although I'm kind of like, is the ink the Babadook?
I thought so.
That's Babadink.
But then I'm like, wait, so that's the Babadook right there. The liquid on the floor is the Babadook.
No, it's the wings on either side of the void.
Yeah.
Or whatever that was.
But then it has the wings later.
But those aren't wings. Those are hands, aren't they? I thought it was like his hands.
The thing is,
whatever.
you can't tell.
Yeah.
Why didn't she die after her son stabbed her in the leg? Like, you have some pretty vital arteries in your leg.
Oh, you have to get the inner inside.
She pulled it out too, so like she's bleeding.
As someone who's been stabbed in the leg, not joking.
What?
That was on the front, like in her quad. She's okay. The
okay.
femoral artery is not on the inside, like in the groin. So
is this a story you can tell right now?
How do you not know this story?
I don't think I've heard the story of you being stabbed in the leg.
I got stabbed in an Uber in Mexico City.
I've heard this story.
It was very minor. I got off lucky.
Is it like a malicious thing? Someone attacked you?
Yeah, we were getting robbed.
What the heck? I didn't hear this. Okay,
you've seen 1% of James Stroud.
You gotta tell me the story after the podcast.
Maybe we talk about sound design real quick. Jennifer Kent says, I only use music when sound can no longer tell story. And I noticed that a lot in this movie. When the book is present, there's this weird like cicada almost noise or static, and it does make you feel like anxious or claustrophobic almost.
Yeah.
And then throughout the film, when there are bad things happening, it's just that sound and almost no music.
Right.
And it does. It makes you feel something.
Yeah. Was there like no music in this movie?
Almost. There was definitely some little jingles and stuff.
Yeah.
It almost felt mystical at points, like when she's sitting on the bench eating her ice cream cone after.
Oh yeah, that's her like her dream, her vacation.
Yeah.
Where, like the best day of my life, I get to be alone. I can totally relate to that.
Go to the mall and get some ice cream.
Yeah, and then comes home to her sister who's like, where were you? What were you doing?
Yeah.
Like that just, that would
was
suck.
a big contrast.
Did you find that the like soundscape was effective in terms of like drawing you in though? Because I didn't find like at any point I was like I found the horror elevated by the horror. Or sorry, the horror elevated by the sound. I think it was like decent, but it felt thin. So like, I didn't find that it was. I can't
remember speaking. I definitely know there's some sounds that pulled me out. We've already talked about those, but
maybe so maybe this is part of it. Like, I started watching this. I just have a sound bar at home. I don't have a great sound system. Most of the time it's fine though, you know? And so, but I started watching it and like the sound was just horrible. Like the dialogue was so muted and everything else was so loud. So what I did,
may have noticed something like that.
So what I did was I connected I just have like little Bluetooth earbuds, and I connected that to my Chromecast. And so I watched it with these Bluetooth earbuds in, and it really, I mean, it sounded great. Like, I feel like I got all the little details. I got all the little granularity there. So I feel like maybe that contributed
That's fair.
to the experience. Maybe it just does not sound good on speaker systems a lot.
Yeah. Well, certainly, like, I think horror stuff with headphones is way more intense. Like, when I play horror games and stuff, if I'm too scared, I switch to speakers, and then if I can handle it, I'll go to headphones because it's so much more intimate.
That works.
That's so funny.
So.
I like when people admit that they're actually scared.
I'm so
like,
scared.
when I turn, you know, when you turn a horror movie off, we have this we tried to decorate a bit for Halloween. We happen to have this like fake machete with blood on it that my toddler used to be Chucky last year.
Oh yeah.
And we tried to hang it on the outside of our door, but then I woke up one morning and the wind was just blowing it against the door. So then we moved it. It's just hanging on the inside of the door.
God.
So I turn off the movie and I go to lock the front door, and for a split second I'm just like, what is this floating knife? Like, and it was dark. All the lights were off and everything. It's just shit like that, you know?
Well, it's funny. The second I started this movie, I hear like a big bang in my bathroom, and I like run over, and like a product that I had closed, like for sure, I remember very specifically having closed it. The lid had like come unscrewed and fallen on the ground, and I'm like, oh my God, the Babadook's real.
Yeah. Honestly.
I remember after I saw Hereditary the first time, I was like taking a shower the next morning or something like that, and I just like was on the other side of that curtain. Like, sometimes you just get affected.
Yeah, no,
for
it
a couple
definitely
of days.
Like, after I watched the movie, my kid woke up in the middle of the night, and I went in there to soothe him or whatever. And then I'm like lying there with him, being like, "Oh, okay, go to sleep" or whatever. And it's quiet in there, and they're just like, I'm like over in the corner. I'm like, "What the fuck?" I honestly don't even know what it was.
Armoire was open suddenly. Babadook.
But yeah, man,
Just
got
throw the
me.
baby.
What?
Like a football.
Yes. Get back, demons!
All right, buddy, you're ready. This is what your training's been for.
All right, let's wrap it up there. Thanks for listening, guys. Next week we are going to do, what are we doing again?
Eternal? No.
Last Night in
Last Night in
Soho.
Soho.
Last night in Soho. There's lots of good movies coming up.
know.
Well, we'll see if they're good.
We'll see it. Yeah, you're right.
You can tweet at us at TJMPod. You can email us. They're just movies. Wait, no. Hello at they'rejustmovies.com. Hello.
Hello.
Goodbye.
Fuck you up.
Babadook, Babadook, Babadook. She just died.